Hey, Walt, thanks for coming on the show today.
Good morning, Breezy. Yes, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, I'm excited to have you on. I've been learning a lot about OG Trust the last couple of months, so it's exciting to get you in the studio to learn a little bit more about your company. And you're the president of OG Trust.
Yes.
How long have you been with the company?
So company started in 2016. It was founded by my two colleagues, Brett Helwig and Dana Church, and then I joined in 2018. So about 7 years.
Okay, so you've been with them a good long while. Not quite from the beginning, but you joined early on.
Yes, yes. It was just the three of us in the beginning. And now we've just made an offer to another potential new employee, so that'll take us to 22. So we've
Nice.
come a long way from those days.
Yeah, absolutely. Just steady growth over the years and a solid team.
Very solid team. Very thankful for everybody that works with us, and a lot of interesting stories about how we all came together. But it's worked out pretty well for us. So
Well, that's good. That's
yeah,
always great to hear because, yeah, I mean, especially in oil and gas, it's like you see companies come together and when they can grow and expand, I mean, there's so much that you can do. But with the booms and busts, sometimes people will go their separate ways or other companies get formed. So it's probably a great thing to be a part of, seeing it grow the way that it has.
yeah. It's been a fun ride so far. So I think we're just getting started. So
Yeah, no, and that's yeah, that's a great way to see it too. It's like that root has been planted and it's strong and you've got the solid foundation built. So there's all kinds of room for growth.
yes,
And what is it that primary services that you offer with OG Trust?
sure. So the company was formed back in 16, like I said, by Brett and Dana, and then we had a couple of other investors and board members that joined us, and the other two folks are very experienced and successful entrepreneurs. So we're very thankful to have them as resources as well. And the need was the idea was back then was we bought a piece of software, a software application called we call it Vision OG, and it's a mineral accounting system. And Brett's background was more auditing and accounting, and Dana's an oil and gas person. He's been a mineral manager for many years, and then my background is operations. So between the three of us, we have some complementary skill sets. And
Mm-hmm.
the idea was to be able to take Vision to the market, and our our core target market has been financial institutions, trust departments, family offices, anybody that's managing minerals for other end clients, a lot of trusts, trust funds, and things like that, where the mineral interests are part of the trust. So the idea was to go to these organizations and see if we could help them manage these assets because they're in our world they're referred to as unique assets. That's a good way to describe them because a lot of people don't necessarily have the knowledge and skill set to actively and efficiently manage them. So that's what we do. We are looking for our clients are looking for someone like us, a firm like ours that has that expertise and the tools like Vision to help them take care of their clients.
And is that a very competitive market? Are there a lot of companies that offer these services?
I would say there's several. It's yes, it's competitive, but it's very niche, and so there's a lot of firms that offer various applications for tracking your minerals and keeping track of all of your royalty payments and jib expenses, working interest expenses and things like that. But ours is pretty specialized for the market that we know about that we were part of.
And in the oil and gas space, is that like primarily where your clients come from?
Well, most of the time it's kind of it's a little different avenue. It'll be a financial institution who ends up having clients that own minerals and they're
Okay.
looking for help managing them.
So you're on the other side of that bridge. They're
Yes.
they're the connector in the middle, those institutions.
Yeah, we end up dealing with the oil companies, the producers, the E&P companies. They're typically paying royalties to our clients. So we do
Okay.
work with them, but we're not in the field. We're not operating wells, that sort of thing. We're just mainly dealing with the royalty owners.
Okay, I gotcha. And so, like for instance, I think that you were telling me a story about someone that they didn't know what they owned, or there were some wells that were going to get drilled on their property. Do I have that right? Am I remembering it
Yeah, I
correctly?
remember that in one of our other conversations. Yeah, so there's a couple stories we could talk about, like to illustrate sort of kind of how we do what we do and why we do what we do. Yeah, so one of them that you're talking about is, I think, is the one we got a call from an attorney up in Pennsylvania, and the gentleman, her client, owned the surface, he owned the land, and also 100% of the minerals under the land. It never been developed, either one, surface or minerals. Never, nothing drilled. Never had a lease. And all of a sudden, he gets contacted by an oil company that wants to buy his minerals. So they made him an offer, which was a fair amount of money. He thought it was a pretty good offer, but they asked us to help evaluate this and figure out, if this was a good offer. And so first thing we did was we researched what's going on around there. Are there other wells? And there were some that were a little bit pretty close to him, but maybe a mile away. And they were pretty good wells. They're up there. It's Marcellus shale, so it's all gas.
Okay.
And anyway, so we did a little bit more research, contacted the oil company. Sure enough, they were planning on drilling like 3 or 4 new wells. And we helped him evaluate that. We did some analysis on, with prices, kind of looking at it, extrapolating it out based on various prices. And then we looked for the volumes. We looked at kind of these closest wells we could find and just kind of try to get some kind of ballpark of what we could expect in terms of production. Of course, we had to put disclaimers all over that because there's no guarantee that they're going to drill them or that they're going to be as productive as the ones nearby, but did the best we could with that. Then we went back to the oil company and we explained to the owner that you don't have to sell them 100%. Like if you want to get some royalties off of this, you could break it up and sell them 50% or 25% or whatever you want to sell them.
Mm-hmm.
So he decided he wanted to. This was basically a windfall for him. So he decided he wanted to participate in the royalties. So he ended up selling the oil company 50% of his minerals for twice the amount that they originally
Wow.
offered. And then he's getting royalty checks. So he's still a client.
Okay.
And I think what's important about this is that this gentleman was from New York City, had retired to Florida. Very successful business person, but he just didn't know anything about
Right.
oil and gas.
Mm-hmm.
And so to this day, he still calls me every once in a while just to check in, because of he's seen our company grow and everything, and he knows what I'm dealing with every day, and so he likes to just check in and see how I'm doing,
That's awesome.
which I really appreciate.
Yeah, you made quite the
It's
impact on
nice to
him.
have somebody like that as out there thinking about you. So
Yeah, well, I mean, kind of validating with what you do, how the necessity of it and how helpful. Because he's successful in other areas, but if you don't know oil and gas, especially with something as niche as mineral rights and knowing about and like not knowing what's going on, not knowing that they had that they were intending to drill wells. So I mean, he would have received a substantial payout, but because of how you guys guided him through this process and what you learned, he was able to not only get a larger payout initially, but then also be a part of receiving royalties.
yeah, and he's still a client, so it worked out.
Yeah,
It's a
everything.
win-win for both
That's
of
a
us.
win-win on both sides, and so just giving a little bit more understanding and context as far as the type of service that you provide and the people that you come across, because you don't know what you don't know, and people that own land or have these minerals, they might not have any idea what it's really worth, and it would be really easy for them to accept that payout or not even be aware that they have that.
Right. Another one kind of like that is so one of the organizations that I mentioned earlier that my background is operations. So when I first started here, I didn't know anything about oil and gas either, and so my colleague Dana recommended that I join NARO, which is an organization, National Association of Royalty Owners. That's our mission is to help royalty owners understand all the things that we're talking about. They have an educational track. It's called CMM, or Certified Mineral Manager. It's a little bit like APL's, educational track, but it's more geared towards royalty owners as opposed to landmen. Anyway, I joined NARO and took the CMM classes, so that's what I know now is basically I credit back to NARO. So very good organization. Encourage anybody that owns minerals to join. Full disclosure, we're on the board, so so I had to put in a good word for NARO.
Yeah,
So.
well, but also kind of giving a little bit of that background too of how you came to be a part of this new company and how you have the knowledge that you do. So that organization provides a lot of the education and understanding, and actually an organization that you can join if you're a royalty owner.
Yes, and we have really two different departments within OG Trust. We have our land department, which Dana oversees. So anytime we hire somebody that is going to be working in that world or that part of the company, we encourage them to go to NARO meetings, sit through webinars, maybe even if they're ambitious enough, go ahead and try to get the CMM designation as well. So we try to make sure that our people are all trained and knowledgeable. The other side of our business is our production side, that's more my world. It's making sure that we're keeping track of all the checks that come in and transactions and making sure things reconcile and all that kind of stuff.
That's important.
Well, yeah, those two things really work together. You got to have both sides
Right.
to do this effectively. So yeah.
So you were telling about an experience that you had through NARO with a client.
Oh yes, sorry.
No, you're good.
Kinda got-
I wanted to get a little bit of understanding about NARO as well, so I
Right.
think I might have got you off track.
So we're involved with NARO, and so what happens with NARO sometimes is that random people will just call in and have a question. They find them online, or maybe they heard about them on a podcast or something. And so they tend to try to route those questions to different board members depending on where you're located. So if you're in Texas, it'll get sent to a Texas person. Well, I'm on the East Coast, so I got this call from a lady in Maryland, and not kind of different than the other story I told. She had no idea she owned anything. She and her two sisters inherited these minerals again in Pennsylvania from a family member years and years ago. And all of a sudden they get a purchase offer. They didn't even know they owned anything. So this is like a complete windfall for them. But again, they don't know what they own.
Right.
They've never seen a deed. This has never been developed. It's not producing anything. So is this a good offer? And so we talked to the landman with their permission. She asked us to help, and the firm that was making the offer, and we started asking questions. Well, there's no plan to drill, there's no lease offer, so why do you want to buy it? And they were packaging up a bunch of acreage, this company, with the intent to try to then take it to an oil company and see if they could sell it. So this interest that we're talking about was right in the middle of the area that they were trying to lease up,
Okay.
which is why they wanted to buy it. So in talking with them, the client, they didn't even know they had it. They never even heard about this. So, it was kind of hard to come up with a valuation for that because there's nothing around it and everything. So we kind of went off of the closest leases that we could find, and try to figure out what acreage was going for. In the end, we decided, or we said, we think this is a reasonable offer, but it's up to you to decide what you want to do with it.
Right.
But we recommend that you and your sisters try to get together because you're going to get more money if you all three sell together. So she talked to her two sisters, and they all decided to sell. The cool part about that story is they sold and they got the money, and she wanted to pay us. Well, because it came through NARO, and we're an advocacy organization, we weren't going to take any money. We didn't really spend that much time on it, to be honest. But I said, she said she is going to take a trip to Europe with her husband with the money. They've always wanted to go to Europe. They never did. So that's what they're going to do. One of her sisters is going to remodel her kitchen or something like that, do some home improvement. The other one, I think, was going to go buy a Mercedes or something. So I just really love the outcome of that, because they just felt like this was they appreciated us helping them. And I said, the only thing I want you to do is when you get to Europe, just take a picture and send it to me. So she did. And
That's awesome. So she went, her and her husband
they went to Europe. They made it to Europe finally. Yeah.
Very
Cool. And so just like the other gentleman I mentioned, she was either president or CEO, owner of an ad agency. So I mean, a very talented, smart person, and but just didn't have any idea what to do with this purchase offer. So those are a couple of examples of things that we can do. And those are it's always rewarding when you can feel like you actually help somebody like that. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you're providing a service, but being able to give them that guidance and education makes a huge difference, because they wouldn't know what to do otherwise. Because that seems like it would be a very nuanced area to be so well versed in.
Yeah.
That's not something that you would be educated on if you didn't have a reason to.
I think out here in Texas, there's a lot more people tend to know what they have,
True. Well, because you kind of expect it, I guess, or the areas a little bit.
In many families we deal with, through our clients, in many cases the minerals can be their largest asset for the family.
Okay.
And that's why they're so in tune with what's going on. They want somebody to help them manage it. There can be a lot of money involved in some of these cases. So.
And is that a lot of that generational?
Yes.
It's been passed down?
Yeah, many, many stories about, great-grandfather was a rancher. They may have sold the ranch. They may have sold the surface 50 years ago, but they put the minerals in trust.
And you're able to do that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so surface rights are bifurcated from mineral rights. So in many cases, the people we're dealing with, they may still own the minerals, but they don't own the surface.
That's interesting. Does that get murky?
Okay.
It seems like it could.
Oh yeah, title is a thing. We're not really big into title research, but I mean that's another thing I would mention here is that we are very good at what we do, but we've also really worked hard to find good partners to do the things that we either don't have the skill set for, or the resources. That's kind of our attitude is if somebody else is really, really good at something else. For example, title work. We've got a network of landmen that we call, depending on where things are located. Luckily, most deed records now in Texas and Oklahoma, especially, are online. So you can do a lot from your computer as far as researching these things. But in some places, you literally have to have someone go to the courthouse and sift through the files, to find deeds and then figure out, okay, well, and a lot of times we find it may even still be in granddad's name, and as far as the courthouse goes. So that then can lead to finding money in suspense, because the oil companies don't know who owns it, and they know that they've got an ownership, but if the proper title work hasn't been done, then they'll put it in suspense.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So that's where it starts getting murky.
That's where it gets murky.
Okay.
And it's also very rewarding when we can help clients. They love finding money in suspense. Sometimes it's been sitting there for a long time.
Wow.
So that's something else that is a value add of using either. And also a lot of times our clients, the banks, let's say, will have a landman on staff, and we just support them. So they may be the ones actually doing all that. But
okay, they all do a lot of that legwork.
They'll do a lot of the way. Yes, some need us to help. Some, it's all different, various levels of service depending on who our client is and what they're asking us to do. But we have other great vendors that we work with, partners. Things like document management. I think that's an underrated thing, being able to keep track of all the mail that comes in and all the different types of mail. Data conversion, we have to deal with millions of lines of details on these run statements that we get. So we've got to have some pretty good partners there. I mentioned like valuation. The two stories I told you before, we didn't have the valuation partner that we have now. I wish we had, because we could have really done a good job of pinpointing what those things were worth. So valuation partners, you know, just something like well data, that's all public. You can go to the Railroad Commission website, but there's people out there that do a good job of aggregating across all states, and so that's a big help to us. So yeah, so we don't do all that, but we need all those tools,
Mm-hmm.
and our clients don't necessarily, you know, they don't want to have to go find all those partners. So
Right.
we can bring all
Yeah,
that to the
right.
table for them and kind of help them get through whatever the situation is.
Oh, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, because you don't necessarily offer the service, but it's still under the same umbrella. If a client comes to you needing the service, they're not having to go find all the different entities they need.
Right, right. So we're pretty full service. We can be. I mean, some of our clients, they have all that figured out, right? They might have a large mineral management division. They might have multiple people working there that are experts, and all they really want is the software. So we do offer that to some people. Others, they want us to do certain things, but they still want to do other things. More client facing.
Mm-hmm.
So we basically, our attitude is we just want them to win. We want them to be able to win new business. We want them to be able to take care of what they have and mitigate their risk as much as we can, and just solve problems. That's really
Yeah.
what we're all about. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Being solution based and being able to offer those solutions is very valuable.
It's never
Now,
boring.
never, yeah, absolutely. Well, and interesting people and stories I'm sure you come across all the time, and you've had a lot of success. OG Trust has had a lot of success. Even on your website, you have multiple success stories listed, and I've of course read through those and I'm familiar with them. Are there any in particular that stand out to you that have kind of been unique?
Well, one that I think that we're pretty proud of is one of our. We've got a couple of clients now that are actually actively buying minerals, and so Vision was built. Most, if you think about most trust accounts, you asked earlier, is it generational? Many of the assets that we're dealing with have been around forever. They've been leased, for a long time. They're producing. They're drilled out. We're actually seeing a lot of new wells, which is encouraging here, like this last year. I'm sure there's lots of reasons for that, but anyway, it's a totally different ball game when you have somebody out there buying new things.
Mm.
And this one client that's doing that asked us for some reporting to illustrate return on investment. So, you're spending money on something. When am I going to make my money back, right? And based on the production and so on. So we had to do some custom reporting for them, and that's worked out pretty well. It's been fun to watch them as they continue to build their portfolio, and we're able to help them, keep track of everything, make sure they're getting paid properly. Because when you're buying new things, you got to keep track of, okay, well, when did I buy it? What did I pay for it? When does it start producing? When do I make my money back? All these questions that
Sure.
you have because you're investing money, just like buying a stock or anything you might buy. You want to know what's going on with it. So
Right. Yeah, and you want experts helping you along the way so you don't miss anything. You don't miss an opportunity or, lose out on like, kind of like you'd said, like that the clients that had contacted you not knowing what they had or not knowing what to do with it.
mhm.
It's like that you could easily miss out on some opportunity if you don't know what you're looking for or what you're doing.
Especially if you scale up to volume. See, when you have hundreds of checks coming in for your one account, that becomes a volume situation where you have to be able to have the tools to look at all of that data that's flying around and make sure that you're not missing anything.
Oh,
And that's
okay.
kind of what our tools allow us to do.
Gotcha. So having that, and this is Vision OG that you're talking about.
Yes.
Okay, and so having that, you're able to again keep everything organized, but also keep track of it. And so it's important to have that resource. And obviously, you have multiple clients, and everyone is different, but that's something that an individual wouldn't have access to, something like that.
Probably not. I mean, there are tools that are designed more for smaller individual owners. There's that are probably less complicated than Vision. Vision's gotten pretty complicated. I mean, as it's evolved,
Sure.
there's a lot of different modules and things that it can do, and we continue to enhance it. It's as things change and new ideas are come around and things like that. So we're always looking for feedback and good ideas to make it better. So
Great.
any software program like that, particularly in something as niche as what we're trying to do, needs to continue to evolve. As things change. I should mention too, we also a couple of years ago we took Vision OG and we reimagined it. So we were talking earlier about surface versus minerals. Okay, so we now have Vision Atlas, which is designed for surface interests. So things like farms and ranches, any kind of real estate, houses, commercial properties. So that's completely separate product that we offer. It's called Vision Atlas, but it's built on the same, logic as OG. It just has some different features and things that are more real estate.
Okay. So
important.
now, if, for instance, a client was surface and subsurface, like, would you use one or the other? The two systems complement each other?
We have a couple clients that are using both,
Okay.
and they're putting surface on Atlas and oil and gas on OG.
Okay. So that's pretty cut and dry then.
Mm-hmm.
So if you own the land and the minerals, you have it's two separate things to be managed.
Yeah, I'd say it depends on what you're trying to do with the application. Like we do have clients that will put surface interests on OG also. It just depends on what they're trying to do.
Oh, okay.
Depends on the type of asset, I would say. So, for example, if you have like a commercial office building, that needs to go on Atlas because you're going to have different types of leases.
Okay.
If you can imagine, an oil and gas lease is very specific. It has its terms and terminology, but a lease on an office building is very different than an oil and gas lease.
Oh yeah, yeah. Apples and oranges for sure.
Right.
That could be very different.
We originally tried to make it all work in one application, but there's too many differences and needs that we just said, okay, let's do the other application.
Sure.
So.
Well, with the evolution and the growth of the company, has that all evolved over time as well? Like using the software and working with different clients, the growth of your company, is it just from kind of the over time everything evolving together and learning new techniques and ways to use the software?
Yes, I'd say that's true. Yeah, the evolution of the staff, I could I could tell some pretty interesting stories about that too. We've intentionally tried to. Our philosophy is to find people with good attitude that are going to be good working with clients, that are ambitious, that want to learn. So we don't feel like we have, just like myself, you don't have to come in and be an expert in oil and gas. We'll teach you all that. So yeah, there's some interesting diverse backgrounds. And so what I think is great about that is that they come in with a fresh set of eyes. They're not already pre-programmed. This is the way we did it at my other place or whatever. And so that has given us some interesting perspectives because they'll come in and say, why in the heck are we doing it this way? That's a good question.
Right.
So I really have enjoyed getting to know our team members, and it's kind of fun when we get together thinking about where we all came from. So
Yeah, that does make it interesting. I'm sure it is good to have different perspectives in that kind of environment. So, because like you said, even with the way the company was started, everybody came from a different area and came together, and you can build something really solid like that because you have such strong backgrounds in different areas that complement one another.
I think so. I hope so.
Seems
That's
like
the
it.
plan.
Yeah. Very cool. Well, what's the vision for the future for OG Trust?
Wow, that's a great question. I think we want to keep doing what we're doing. I think there's a lot of opportunity out there still in the markets that we're in. I think that again, my background is operations, and specifically, I work for a trust company. So that's kind of my network up to now has been pretty much in that world. And as things have evolved, we've started to meet some other people with different needs. Again, I mentioned our client's a mineral buyer. I think that vision is a good fit probably for other constituencies that we haven't really tapped into. I think we'll always, we know how we got here, and we know what our core market is, and they'll stay that. But I feel like as time goes on, we might be able to do some interesting things with other types of firms. But that's kind of my vision. And just like I said earlier, when our clients win, we win. So we like organic growth too. We like to see our existing clients do well, get new business, help them support that. And I think that's our mission. And that's what we need to do. We don't need to, or we don't. I don't think we need to change too much. Let's just keep doing what we're
Right.
doing and do it the best we can.
Yeah, I think that's a great place to be. Like when you get your system down and it's a well-oiled machine, then you can just enjoy that growth and scale. You're not necessarily trying to figure it out or reinvent the wheel or um, open something else. It's all very complementary, and it sounds like it's just a well put together team and service that you offer.
Well, thank you. I hope so. I mean, our biggest challenge has been the same thing: the growth and keeping up with the onboarding and things like that. And that's been our biggest challenge, which is a good problem to have.
Sure. Yeah.
But that's what when I think about challenges, that's been our biggest challenge here lately. But we're working through all that, and that's a solvable problem.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
um, so we appreciate our clients' patience as we figure all that out too. And
Just growing pains every time you evolve and
right,
getting adjusted on that next level.
right, and our success too somewhat is tied somewhat to commodity prices. So that's something we can't control.
Right.
But and this have been, and that's more on the oil, anybody in the
Mm-hmm.
gas industry, this. So we're right there with y'all in the field. We want the operators to do well. We want them to drill new wells.
Of course.
We want them to be successful. So we do follow. And I've enjoyed your podcast. I've learned a lot from some of the other guests you've had. I've never worked in the field, and kind of interesting learning about how all that works.
Yeah, and that was a big part of the reason I started it, because I was the same way. Uh, the only experience I'd had with the oil and gas industry was working on the pipeline. And when you actually get out into the field and you're seeing different parts of the industry and upstream, midstream, downstream, and seeing it all work together, and actually, when I got that experience to work on my first facility, I really enjoyed that, because I mean, pipeline is pretty cut and dry. Once you learn it, you know it. It doesn't really change the terrain, the regions, the types of permits you get, things like that, the size of the pipe. But the concept is very very straightforward. But when you start building gas facilities and compressor stations and meter stations and learning about drilling and fracking, and that was when I mean, it just opened my eyes so much, and I was able to get a lot of experience as I moved through the industry in different positions, trying out different positions, and sometimes that would be out of necessity, or a job would end or a position would end, and you just pivot, and somebody and they give you an opportunity, and you make it work, or you stay for a while and learn what you need, and turn it into something else. And so when I finally kind of got to the end of my experience in the field, I was able to put it all together and do something like this, which is educational and also a tool within the industry where we're all doing business together, but being able to learn about different parts of the industry, I feel like opens up your customer base.
Mm.
It opens up your ability to know what's going on, to know what to look for. And also, I really strive to do my best to work with the best companies in the industry, the ones that are leaders, trailblazers, that are really making a difference and being innovative, but also true to themselves. And so everybody's different as far as like what is the best. But so for me, being able to have people on the podcast talking about parts of the industry that I have experience in, and then those where I stretch a little bit and I'm like, I have never been exposed to it. I have no idea what you do. But because I have that foundation built, and I have my conversations and I do my own research, and of course I have the network that I've built, I can figure it out and get a pretty good understanding of what's going on or how the processes all work together. That's very important. And I think that we get a lot of disconnects in the industry because we don't all necessarily work together. It's all a part of the same system, but when you don't know about certain areas or how the processes work as far as drilling and the refineries and how products are made, like there's such a long process, but everything is nuanced, and so one part of the industry may not touch another, but they're adjacent. So that's a little bit of what the podcast has been for, is to provide that education for people within the industry, doing better business and getting a better understanding of oil and gas, and then also of course for the trades. Anybody that works a skilled trade, I'm an equipment operator by trade, and so I didn't know about a lot of opportunities that I could get beyond that position just from having that experience. And so as I've moved through the industry and I've been able to see that, I want to offer that education for people that do have a skilled trade, but they don't necessarily know the business opportunities that could be ahead of them, or how to navigate a career path, or even if you stay in your trade, like what else you can do with it. And so there's just so much, and so I always say it's a matrix, and I'm just trying to put the links together.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I agree with everything you're saying. And yeah, I mean, we appreciate sometimes it can be somewhat adversarial between the royalty owner and the operator. That can, you mentioned earlier, you used the word murky. There can be situations where you know, you're on the other side of the table. But
Yeah, true.
but what we understand is the royalty owner doesn't get the royalties without the operator, and the operator doesn't get to drill the well without the lease, and you need the royalty owner to get the lease. So we are all in this together. And
Yeah.
so I mean, then all the other people that you're talking about, then you got to get the gas in the pipeline to sell it to somebody.
Right.
So it's all related.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, so we're just doing our thing
Right.
in our part of the world. And I think that I think that what I would hopefully the the point of all this today is, if someone out there owns minerals, and they need help managing them, or even if they think they don't need help managing them, there are resources out there. It doesn't have to be us. There's banks, there's trust companies, there's mineral management firms. Having your minerals professionally managed can be to your advantage, can help you. And even if you're the best mineral manager in the world and you own your minerals and you know everything you have and all that, then there's the thing that nobody likes to talk about: estate planning.
Right.
What's going to happen when you can't do it anymore?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have kids? We see it all the time where they may have kids with special needs, or kids that don't care about minerals. And so I would just say that the good news is that there's a lot of different ways that you can plan ahead
Sure.
with that. So
That's very important. I mean, you're right. Like, that's not necessarily something that would be in the forefront of your mind, but like when you own assets like that, and because like you said, it can all get tied up, and then it just. What did you say in Suspense? Is that how you phrased that?
if you don't do certain things at certain times, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's a proactive way to manage what you own. So you're not getting into those murky waters with becoming adversarial in your family, or just not having any idea what you're doing with it. And I mean, that seems like it could be very burdensome if you're not prepared.
Yes, and I think earlier you were asked if it was generational. These assets, a lot of times they are, and a lot of times not only are they a big, important asset for the family, but they're also people are really sentimental about them. They're very it's emotional because often whoever put all this together, they worked really hard to do that,
Right.
and we see that a lot too. People love telling their story, the family story, and we love hearing those family stories. And so, you know, in like our generation right now, you're probably not thinking about that, but if someone out there is, 50 years old and has built this nice portfolio of, at some point,
Yeah.
you got to start thinking about
Take some action. Absolutely. Because
to
I
not
mean, you
to
never
not
know.
to not have it fall down on you, or to have somebody, the worst case stories that we see are well, there's a lot of things we see, but when families start to have problems with each other.
Oh, yeah. I wasn't even thinking about
Yeah,
that.
that's
Because
that's no fun,
yeah,
but that does happen sometimes.
because that's already adversarial to start with, and then you're trying to divide up assets or claim ownership and all those types of conversations that happen in that kind of situation.
It's like one of my old bosses used to say, people get funny when it comes to money. So
Yeah, that's a very good way of putting it, for sure.
so anyway, there are resources out there. We're very proud of our client. We've got some of the best banks in the U.S. doing this, and they know what they're doing on the things that they're really good at. So we really appreciate them too.
That's
and so
great. Just great relationships and services that you offer, and just always looking to help your clients manage their assets.
that's it. Yep. So
Great. Well, it's been interesting. Again, just learning another part of the industry, getting more familiar with it, and passing on that education and understanding what you guys do at OG Trust. And so I appreciate you coming on the show today, Walt, and sharing a little bit about it with us.
I appreciate the opportunity. It's my first podcast, so hopefully.
Yeah, you did great. You did great, and I really enjoyed it.
Thank you,
You bet.
Bruce.
And thank you, everyone, for watching Power of the Permian. We'll see you next time.